Welcome to the commentary booth, where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week we're doing something a little bit differently. This week we're looking at a movie which has now jumped to the stage and has done that vice versa throughout its lifetime. Joining me this week is Patrick Whitbread, a rising star of the Australian musical theatre scene. Patrick is set to play Riff in the Handa opera on Sydney Harbour production of West Side Story. Today, Patrick joins us to chat about his history with West Side Story and his experiences in the lead up to this thrilling new outdoor theatre production. Without further ado, let's jump into the interview. Today, we're here to chat to our guest about their history with West Side Story and their experiences in the lead up to the thrilling new Handa opera on Sydney Harbour production of West Side Story. Welcome to the show, Patrick Whitbread.
Hey, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So before we get into the West Side Story production coming to Sydney Harbour, I would like to get to know a little bit more about your film and TV tastes and what you would say are your film and TV favourites, since that's usually what we chat about on the commentary booth.
Yeah, love that. Um, I'll dive right in with my favorite genre would definitely be horror. Um,
Unexpected.
s- yeah, most people are a bit shocked by that. I love horror movies. I actually just recently went back and watched all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets.
Very
I just
nice.
finished like that series again last week. Um, I love Survivor as a TV interest. And also like any good drama, any good, well acted, well written dramas,
Okay.
which I think are like few and far between, but when they're good, they're good.
Yep. What is it about horror that draws you in, given that you're sort of on the theatre side, it doesn't sort of seem to line up?
Well, it can. I don't know what the direct correlation is, but there's this kind of understanding that people who are interested in what humans are capable of, or like how humans can, like how far people can go, those people are generally watching horror movies because it's you get a taste of, I don't know, something that you don't want to happen in real life, but you can like you just get a bit more of an understanding of what can happen. I think it's why we're all fascinated by like disasters that have happened in the past and like Titanic and like horrific events, because we are always just trying to understand how humans let this happen. Um, which I kind of think is similar to theatre in a way where we're always exploring what a person can do or what a person might do in this situation. So it's not like a direct link, but I think there's a link there.
Yeah, I guess as an actor, it gives you a good chance to sort of explore emotions and reactions that you physically cannot go and experience in your real life.
Exactly. Yeah, and like and there's no consequence either.
So if there was a horror film to be transported to the theatre stage, which would be your dream role?
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to be the final girl um, in in all of them because I want to be the star. But also, like being a slasher would be fun.
Yeah, like a
Like being the villain.
Scream or something.
Scream is my favorite franchise, 100%. Um, yeah, it would be so much fun. I also think that would work well on stage because it's so referential and you can make it really campy and really scary too.
Yep. Yeah, I think that'd be
Do you
really
like horror
cool.
films?
Yes. I think, yeah, a Scream theatre show would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, let's write it.
Yep. Okay, so now as we turn our focus to West Side Story, when did you sort of first discover this film and this production?
So I first saw West Side Story as a school musical back in Newcastle. I'm from Newcastle, and it was probably like 2009 9 or 10. I went with my friends to see some of our friends who were in that show, and I hadn't heard of it. Um, and by the end of seeing West Side Story for the first time, I was in love. I have always, since then, adored West Side Story. It's the most famous musical. It's the most important musical. It's probably one of the best written musicals. It's it's a juggernaut of like acting, dancing, and singing. It's just the best of its kind. So yeah, probably around 2009 or 10, I just watched it in a school play. Like it might have been terrible, but I don't know. At that time, I was enamored, and then I went home and I was like, "Mum, we have to watch the movie." So I think we watched the movie, and have you seen the film? Have you seen the old film?
I haven't seen the old one. I've seen the newest remake.
The Yeah, yeah, both I think are really excellent. Um, the old one, the 1961 version, is so obviously of its time, and you watch it now and you're like, this is ridiculous. Um, and yeah, I watched it. I was like, that's ridiculous, but I want to watch it all over again.
Have you had a chance to sit down and rewatch the two films in the lead up to the Handa opera production?
I haven't watched the old one in a very long time, but I watched the Steven Spielberg recent one, and it's really good. It changes like a fair bit, which I think some people got upset about. But I think if you're going to remake something, you might as well change it,
Yeah.
um, because it's the first one was such a classic, like one of the most successful movie musicals of all time. So why would you just try and recreate that? Which I think they did a great job of nodding to it and moving past it. And yeah, it's different. And then I really liked it. The tension in the scenes is there, which is really kind of all you need. The choreography is brilliant. The singing is great. But yeah, it's a drama. It's a tragedy. It's a Shakespearean tragedy, West Side Story, because it's based on Romeo and Juliet.
Mhm.
So you really just need good acting and good tension to make it work.
Yep. Has the cast of the upcoming production had a chance to sort of sit down and do like a cast watch party of the films, or are you trying to avoid being influenced too much by the film?
Well, no, we haven't done that. We generally like once you start rehearsals, you pretty much hit the ground running, and once you get home from rehearsals at the end of the day, you're like, I will eat and sleep. Like it's pretty intense. Um, but no, I don't think people like watching films or other versions of the show like while you're rehearsing because it can influence your choices, and even if you don't want them to, like it can happen. So I don't think we have really done that because A, we're all too tired, and B, we're having fun exploring our own version. Like this is a new version of West Side Story for us, and it's exciting, and we don't need to be influenced right now.
Yep. Yeah, that makes total sense. Like you want to give it your own flavor and own flair, like that Australian spin, I
Yeah,
guess, as well.
exactly.
And you mentioned
But we'll
sort of,
watch it after.
yeah, as like a wrap up
Yeah,
celebration with everyone.
yeah.
And you mentioned sort of loving the show. What is it about West Side Story that makes it so special to you?
Um, Number one, I think I love musicals. I'm a big musical nerd, but a lot of musicals aren't really well written. The characters are sometimes not developed. The storylines can be a bit trivial. Where that in West Side Story is just not a thing. Everyone is so fleshed out, and their intentions are always clear. The tension in the scenes is always there. You know what people are fighting for, and what they're fighting for is it's high stakes. The whole play is intense. So I think I love that aspect of it. I love that there's always something going on that the audience can be excited by. Also, look, you truly can't move past the music. It's one of the best scores for a musical ever written by Leonard Bernstein. It's he was so influenced by classical music. It's very classically written, mixed with like jazz and kind of 50s musical like operetta styles at the time. It was the first of its kind, and now we are still singing and performing it like it's new. What 70, nearly 70 years later? Like it's so well written, so ahead of its time. The music is probably why most people like West Side Story. But then also, as a dancer, you see this show, and the choreography has been famous for like 70 years,
Mhm.
and it's still exciting. Like the dancers' facility has changed so much in 70 years that we like, because we train more, we've got better training, we have better nutrition, all that stuff. So people's bodies can do more than they could back then. But the choreography is still so exciting and challenging. As a 30-year-old dancing that every day, I'm like, it's tough.
You
But
get a nice workout every performance.
like without a doubt, I'll finish a number and I'll be like, it's insane. Um, but yeah, so there's also that aspect of it. Like there are three giant pillars of what musicals are made of, and in this show, all three of them are hugely successful. So I think that's why I love this story. I just think it's the best.
Yeah, I rewatched Spielberg's adaptation last night just to sort of refresh my memory on it. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah. Did you like it?
yeah, and I think like what you said, the characters, sometimes in musicals there's the two core characters and they're kind of the only people that get any sort of build up and focus. This one I felt like
Yeah,
there
totally.
was a cast of half a dozen or so that all had really important moments and had a place in the show.
Totally. I fully agree with you. Usually there's like one or two people who are like fleshed out and they have a love story and blah blah blah, and everyone else is a bit like waka waka. I'm here for comedy and I'm the sidekick. Whereas in West Side Story, I play Tony's best friend Riff, who is the leader of the Jets gang, and he's as fleshed out and I want to say as important, but I don't know if he is. Um, as important as the leads because it's the narrative is driven by Riff. He decides that there's going to be a rumble and a fight, and that's ultimately what ends up tearing this story apart. So yeah, these characters are not just added for extra people; they're there because there's something to be said for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if I was to give it like an analogy, he's kind of like the engine of the car and then Tony is driving the car.
Totally, totally.
Are you a trading card collector or a fan of Australian pro wrestling? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on the limited edition Australian wrestling cards. Each set includes 50 packs of 10 cards, including some of the country's top wrestling talents like Robbie Eagles, Shane Haste, Madison Eagles, Hartley Jackson, and they have Shaza McKenzie listed, although she is not a favorite. The velocities, and a lot more. There's wrestlers, referees, announcers, commentators that are featured, giving you a full appreciation of the Australian independent scene. The cards sold out a lot faster because cards are hot right now, but you can order your Australian wrestling cards now at Pario Magazine. That's PARIO magazine.com.au/AUS WRES cards. Follow Australian Wrestling Cards on social media at AusResCards for updates. Join the hundreds of fans who have already discovered the excitement of Australian wrestling cards.
So then in terms of your role as Riff, what was it about this particular role that you found so compelling and it made you want to be involved in the upcoming production?
Um, I have, it kind of speaks to my like on a purely physical level, it speaks to my talents, I suppose. Um, like it needs to be a strong singer, strong dancer, strong actor, and I I can do those things. I am good at those things. So that's like already my eyes were like, okay, well, that's the role I'll go for. I like that role. And then the more I was like prepping for the audition, I was like, okay, so this guy he often gets labeled like a villain or a bad guy, and like, he's not a good guy, uh, but he's just tormented and he's terrified, and he's a teenager who's trying to keep together a group of people who have terrible home lives, and all he's trying to do is fight for um, this little lot of land that they're all kind of hanging out on because it's becoming overrun by people who weren't there first. And I don't think it matters who they are or where they come from or what color they are. I think it's just they're there and they don't understand that this is ours. So I was kind of, I learnt more about him, and the more you learn about a character, the more you fall in love with them. So I started, really respecting and liking this guy, and to the point where I was like, well, I have to play him. I have to do this. It's one of the most iconic roles in music theatre as well, because it's like a full-on triple threat moment.
Mhm.
And you always want to. I want to challenge. I want to show off. I want to be validated in that way, like all performers. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go for the top guy. Let's go for it.
Very
And it
nice.
worked. I don't know how.
And this isn't your first time portraying Riff either, because
No,
you
I
previously played him at Wapa. How has your portrayal changed this time around? How have you evolved as a performer, I guess?
well, 10 years on. Um, so I was 20 when I did it last time, and it was a uni production. So there's less. I don't know. There's less pressure to nail it back then. There's less. There's less experience behind you going into it. So this time, I'm older, so it hurts more. B, I understand the world of live performance so much more. I've been doing it for 10 years. Um, and I can add all of that to this role now that I didn't have before. Plus, I think I probably would have portrayed him as a bad guy back then. I don't really remember how I did it, but I have an understanding that I probably didn't understand back then. So I probably played him as a villain, whereas now, like, that's not my intention at all. I will still come across as a bad guy, but I'm not playing him as a bad guy.
Yeah, there's a bit more nuance to the portrayal this time around.
Yeah, totally. And that's fun. That's really fun. It's so nice to revisit something after such a. Like, I know it's a long time to. I don't remember the show back then. I wish I remembered the lines of the songs, and it would make rehearsals a lot easier. But I don't remember how it went, but I remember the feeling of it. And yeah, it feels so different now. I'm having so much more fun. The creative team that are directing and choreographing us here are so on board with us making choices that I guess normally you don't see in West Side Story. Um, it's I think a lot. West Side Story has done a lot. And lots of people have done it, and it's often produced with this kind of reverence that you cannot change things. You cannot, you know, every scene is. You must be respectful to the blah blah blah. Like, and that's just not how we're doing it. We are respecting it obviously, but we're making it fresh. We're making it ours. We're making parts funny because they should be. They're written funny, so they might be well be funny. Um, just things like that. It's kind of not how I remember feeling doing the show last time.
That's great. Do you think that's a product of performing this in an unusual setting as well, with it being on the outdoor stage on the Sydney Harbour foreshore?
Absolutely, it's the actual size of the stage is probably 3 times the size of a normal stage that we normally perform on as professionals. So that in itself, like any gesture that you make that you would normally make in a 2,000 seat theater has to be big, has to go like bigger than you would, because otherwise you're not going to be seen. You're just going to look like a tiny little ant on this giant stage. It's massive. I'm really excited for people to see it because it's just so unusual. But yeah, I think your point is right. We are doing things new and fresh and different because the setting calls for it.
And I imagine that sort of contributed to that rehearsal factor of it being a little bit more challenging as well, because it is a bigger stage. All of these dance sequences are probably involving a lot more movement.
Absolutely. Totally. What would like yeah, there's one part where in this song Cool, the Jets are on opposite sides of the stage and they have like 4 or 6 counts to get to the other side of the stage. And in a normal theater, that's kind of doable. And here we have the same amount of music but triple the length of the stage. So we're all like, yeah! So it's really challenging.
Yeah.
Plus, our stage is raked. So that means it's a ramp essentially. So the back of the stage is higher than the front of the stage, which is a very old theatre technique. It used to happen all the time. It doesn't really happen as much anymore, but because it's outside and for a plethora of reasons, I suppose it's raked. Um, so when you turn upstage, like facing away from the audience and walk that way, you're going up a small hill
Just an extra
instead
little
of just
challenge.
truly, it's wild. My quads have never been more defined, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, there's positives to come out of that situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
So then, what can audiences sort of expect from the show, given it is grander, bigger, better than ever before?
I think they can expect a version of this show that is it's not stripped back by any means. It's huge. It's spectacle. Um, However, there is such and we have put such an importance on the relationships of these characters because I think we all understand if that's not there, then it's kind of just a sing and dance concert. Like if you don't trust these people or believe them or understand their relationships together and the connections, then the singing and dancing is kind of for nothing. So it's huge. It's a big spectacle, but there's so much heart to it, which I think is what people are going to get from it. They're going to get the best of both worlds. They're going to get a visual spectacle, an auditory spectacle, and something to take home with them, which is, I mean, I hope.
And do you think because of the recent Spielberg adaptation that we might get a lot more people coming to this show as well because they've had a chance to witness it there, and then thematically it does sync up with Sydney at the moment with kind of gentrification, people kind of feeling pushed out of where they normally used to live.
Totally, 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 totally. Also, like West Side Story hasn't been done in Australia since pre-COVID, so like there's almost a new group of teenagers who are like ready to understand theater, like all those 15-year-olds who were about 10 back then, who probably didn't see it, or if they saw it, they didn't get it. Now they're at that age of, I mean, they might want to do theater, they might understand the story more. So there's a whole nother generation of people who are ready for this epic, beautiful story. And I think there'll be more people because of that. Plus, the Spielberg movie came out since the last productions have been on. So yeah, and it was wildly successful as well. So I think it'll potentially bring a more mainstream audience to a musical.
Awesome. And then yeah, the outdoor setting as well. I think that's going to attract people that potentially wouldn't normally go to a theatre production.
Yeah, because it's different, it's fun, and it's almost like stadium esque, like a footy match.
And so yeah, the Handa Opera on Sydney Harbour has become an annual tradition. Like we've mentioned, you love your horror. Is that a story that you would like to see portrayed in this setting, or is there another story that you would like to get this opportunity?
For the outdoor experience?
Yep.
Oh, I think horror ones should probably be inside and intimate and terrifying that way. Um, but it would be so interesting to see it outside. What do I want to see outside? It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I think lots of things could work outside. It just adds a fresh view on a show. So I think a lot of things could really work outside. Some probably wouldn't, but I'd happily see anything outside. I think it's fun.
Yep. For me, Hamilton is one of my favorite all-time theatre productions, and I think given its popularity and putting it on a great big stage like that, I think could be an absolutely phenomenal showcase.
Yeah, like something like that. I think it should be an epic show to warrant the size of the stage, the setting that it's in, and like Hamilton's a perfect example of that. It's an epic show. Um, Lots of people make it good as well, like a cast that's big. So maybe not like a three-person musical. Um, just because there's bodies on stage is what's impactful as well. Yeah, let's put Hamilton outside.
Yeah, great. And I noticed, is that a One Piece t-shirt as well?
It is. It is.
Very nice. Are you a like an anime fan in general?
I do enjoy. I wouldn't classify myself as an anime fan, um, but I do enjoy the more basic versions of anime. Like I love Avatar. I love the mainstream things. Um, like I love my Studio Ghibli. I love, yeah, mainly Avatar. I used to love Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and yeah, One Piece is hysterical.
Yeah, very nice.
I
Kind of.
don't think I've seen nearly like a quarter of the episodes because there's
Oh, there's a lot.
millions.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, but
kind of sad news
always
over the
enjoyed.
weekend with Akira Toriyama passing away suddenly.
Yeah, that's the man who did Dragon Ball Z, right?
Yeah, the creator of Dragon Ball and a couple of others.
Yeah, I mean, what a legacy to leave behind, though.
Yep. Yeah, I think without Dragon Ball, shows like One Piece and Avatar wouldn't have been potentially a thing or as big a thing as they are today. So very
Yeah,
good news.
yeah. Maybe maybe I'll rewatch Dragon Ball Z
I
as
have been.
my come home from work. You have been?
Yep.
What's it on? Where can I find it?
I have the DVDs of the new Kai, like it's the condensed remade version of the original Dragon Ball Z. So that's
And you
great.
recommend?
I would, yes. Like it
Okay.
gets rid of all of those weird filler episodes where it's kind of like, oh, what was the point of this? It's just all the action bits that you
Okay.
remember in your head and not so like you don't so much remember those filler ones.
Yeah, no, I just remember some like major fights with Frieza,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
every two episodes.
Yeah. And this is like got all of those pushed in together,
Yeah, and
gets
then
rid of all the extra bits. And there are some weird like changes that are a bit off putting, but apart from that, it's fine.
I just remember all of the time just being like, wasn't that person a good person? And now they're fighting. Like,
Yep.
I was too young to understand.
Yep. Very grey characters, which we have chatted
Yeah,
about and enjoy.
yeah.
Alrighty, so before we wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to sort of say to audiences about the upcoming production before we close out?
Um, Only that I really want people to come and see this show because I want to um I want to give this story to so many people. Like it really changed my life. I think that first time I saw this show, I think I probably decided I was going to do theater. Like I didn't realize that you could be affected by plays and live theater like that. And I want to do that for people. And if they have moved past that part already, I want to give them a good show. There's nothing like a good story. We're storytellers as a race, as a species. Sorry, because that's what we do. We tell stories and keep stories, and I just want to be a part of that. So come on down.
Brilliant. Alrighty, so thank you for joining me on the show this week. Why don't you sort of go ahead and let our audience know where the best place is to track you personally and support the show?
Yeah, so you can track me personally on Instagram. I don't have many other accounts because I'm not very savvy, but it's P Whitbread, PWHITBREAD. Yeah, drop me a follow, send me a message if you want. And tickets for the show are on the Opera Australia website. Really easy to find.
Wonderful. Alrighty, thank you so much and good luck with everything.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
West Side Story takes to the Handa Opera on Sydney Harbour stage from March 22nd through until April 24th. Sitting on the edge of Sydney Harbour at the base of the Fleet Steps at Mrs. Macquarie's Point, this outdoor theatre spectacular is set to be an unforgettable experience. Tickets are on sale now at www.opera.org.au. Thank you for listening to the Commentary Booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at Jamyaps Media and at Pario Magazine. The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamyaps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamyaps Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.